Hey there. And I'm really in my office. I just want everybody to know I'm in my office. I am here. That's not a fake background back there. That's really there. I can go and open a book up right there. There's no Hollywood, there's no Hollywood um machinations going on here. I'm trying to get everybody on though. For some reason, the email did not go out yesterday with our schedule. And what can I tell you? How's everybody doing? Who's
Fine,
here?
thank you.
Yeah,
We're glad you're back. How was the trip?
it was great. I was the first part I was in the first few days I was in England. That wasn't great. That was just for Tracy to see her folks. But then the last few days I was in Iceland, and that was very nice because Iceland had no restrictions, and Iceland was very much open to uh, everything. You know, you could no mask until the last day. Actually, the day we left, they put a mandate order in at midnight for masks to go back on, and we were gone. Like with that, we were out of there. But yeah, all you had to do is prove you were vaccinated, take a test within 72 hours before coming to the country, and you could go. So it was really quite nice there, and got to travel around and see some
Were
nice.
you able to see the Northern Lights there?
No, wrong time of year, unfortunately.
Is it wrong time?
Yeah, that was the only problem, but it could, because it never gets dark during the summer. It is never dark. So
Right.
Did you get outside of Reykjavik at all?
Yeah. We took the road around the country, the ring road they call it. So we went all the way around. Have you been there, Elise?
Not yet.
Yeah, no, we did. We went all the way around the country, and you can do it in about 5 or 6 days. You can go around. They have something called the Golden Circle, which takes you it's not far from Reykjavik, takes you to some beautiful waterfalls and some really nice stuff. But if you have a few days, you can go around the country and then see even more waterfalls. No, there's a lot of water. I mean, like, you get almost desensitized to how many waterfalls they have there. But it's amazing how the landscape, because of the volcanic, nature of the island, it is amazing how these waterfalls are kind of just like everywhere. They're like up in the mountains, and then you can drive by one, and it's in the middle of a field somewhere. There's another waterfall. They're just everywhere. So you almost again become desensitized to the natural beauty of the place, because it's just everywhere, and there's nobody there. I mean, there's 350,000 people in the country, which, like I tell people, there's more people in Santa Clarita than there are in all of Iceland. And so Reykjavik has 90% of them. But what's weird is that there is just nobody in I mean, like a city of 18,000 people is a major metropolis there. And there you can drive for miles without seeing anybody. So, my guess is that my grandkids or great grandkids will be living there, because it'll be the only, habitable part of the world by then. So we'll all be living humans will all be living north of the 80th parallel. But I was looking at it.
Vancouver.
When we were, that'll be
It'll be perfect
that'll be the
in about
Mexico.
10 years.
That'll be the Mexico. I was looking at the latitude we were at. We were at the highest place I'd ever been before Iceland was in Fairbanks, Alaska. And I looked at I was like, I wonder where we were. We were like half a degree of Fairbanks you are when you're
Really?
when you're in Reykjavik. So that's how far north it is.
So you're pretty close to the North Pole then, right?
Yeah, so it never gets dark. When I say it, like at 11 o'clock at night, it looked like 4 o'clock, 3 o'clock in the afternoon. So we were really lucky with weather until the end. The last few days it rained while we were there, but other than that, we were really lucky with the weather. We had we had some beautiful. I mean, it was like 60, 65 degrees tops, unfortunately. I mean, it didn't get much hotter. Well, not unfortunately, it didn't get any hotter than that. There are no Jews in Iceland. I mean, when I tell you there's one synagogue.
Not even a Chabad?
No, there is. Well, nominally, I'm sure it's nominally Chabad, but that's the only rabbi that would, come and live in Iceland, I'm sure. But it's just crazy how little people there are. I mean, you really can't kind of get over how few people there are in this whole country. So it is like Scandinavia. I thought it would be more like Scandinavia, but it's also kind of different. It's different from Scandinavia. It's different from really anywhere else. How the country functions, because there's just so few people, throughout much of the place. So it's and it's not.
Is it a democratic country,
Rabbi? Yeah. It's has the history of being the oldest parliament. The Althing was the earliest representative parliament from 1,000 years ago. So they brag that they're the oldest. They lost their sovereignty about 800 years ago to Denmark, but they like to brag that they're one of the oldest democracies in the world, because the Althing then went out of power, but it's still called the Althing, and they still have it. The legacy goes back over 1,000 years. So they are very proud of their Viking ancestry, and they're proud of Leif Erikson, who came from Iceland. So there's a statue, but when I say there's like no cultural sites, there are no cultural sites in Iceland. There's like a couple of museums. One of the museums, I'm not making this up, I'm going to say this before we go on Facebook. One of their main museums in Reykjavik is the Animal Penis Museum, the Phallological Museum. We didn't go in, but that's like they have an art museum and they have a penis museum. Those are the only two museums they have in Reykjavik. I'm sure there's a third, by the way. I'm not 100% sure there's only two, but those are the only two that you see on a map. So they're you don't have to pay for a lot of things to go to, because there aren't museums and churches. There's one big church you go to in Reykjavik, which if you want to go up to the top, you can pay like $8 or something to go up to the top of the church. But other than that, there's nothing you have to pay entry to. The food is expensive there, and the hotels are relatively expensive for what you get. But it is not an expensive country from the standpoint of touring around, because you don't pay for anything. You're basically looking at waterfalls and volcanoes. And we did go to volcanoes.
But cars and gas.
Cars and gas are not cheap, but they're not cheap right now anywhere. Try renting a car in Burbank. You can't. It's not cheap anywhere. It was about $800 to rent a car for a week, and
it's not bad.
It was a tiny Kia, but the gas is expensive, but it's expensive in Europe. So that wasn't the expensive stuff. The food is notoriously expensive, and it's just a little bit more. But as I said, the other things, as far as costs of touring and costs of being a tourist there, they're minimal. So I definitely recommend it. It's the people there were pretty friendly. Like everybody speaks English, and it's just the hardest thing.
That's their natural language, isn't it?
No, they're not. No, it's Scandinavian. It's Icelandic. It's like Scandinavian. It's one of those languages, but like it's completely unpronounceable. I mean, that's the hardest thing, is trying to figure out where you're going. You have no way of telling somebody, I'm going to the Skorger fall. It literally is like one of those the Swedish chef. You're speaking like, and you're butchering the names of every one of the things. But the words are just insane. And aside from that, but everybody speaks English. You just point to a map and they'll help you. It is
Whales of Iceland Museum.
The what?
Whales.
Yeah, there are whales you could see. We didn't see any whale. From what I understand, the whale watching is great there, but it's also pretty good actually in California. I just want you to know, we don't go. We don't go whale watching a lot, but whale watching in California is actually notoriously good compared to where it is in other places. I just want you to know.
Really good here.
we get not as good as Alaska.
No, it's true.
I don't know. It was pretty good. I've been
Oh,
to
no,
Alaska,
we were,
Wales, Hawaii, and here. I would definitely rate this certainly above Hawaii and pretty close to Alaska.
when we were in
Pretty damn
Alaska, we
good.
went whale watching on one of the tours, and we actually saw a school, like they call them, of the killer fish, you know, the shamu type fish, and it was just incredible to see them in the open.
No, but I'm just telling you, like you can go back east, you can go to East, like to wherever, Cape Cod or everywhere they say they have whale watching. You'll see a whale, like you'll be lucky if you see a whale. We were really, really spoiled. And the real reason I'm saying it is because it's not the thing like people don't go, I'm going to LA and I'm going to go whale watching. But I will tell you, it's really quite good here. So anyways, I'm not saying that only because I want everybody to go whale watching, but we're really spoiled here. We really, really, really are. And thank you, Judith, for backing me up on that, because people sometimes they'll go on tours to whale watching and they don't see anything unless, again, it's a fluke. Here, you can almost guarantee it. So again, you're right, Mike. There's stuff to see in
Well,
Alaska.
no, we've been whale watching out here in California, you know, off the coast, and it's pretty cool.
But the fact that you actually get to see something almost every time you go out is
Yeah.
something you like. It pains you when you're paying to go on a tour and you're a tourist and you don't get to see anything, because it's like, that's what I paid for. I want a whale. But here you're pretty solid. Anyways, that is we got off topic, but I will tell
Would
you,
you not have gone to the Penis Museum?
I didn't. We didn't have enough time. That's all. I'll leave it at the Phallological Institute.
Phallological Institute.
I could not get. We were actually not in Reykjavik that much. We were only in Reykjavik for a few hours on the way in and on the way out. We really were not in Reykjavik a lot. There is not a lot to see, as I said, in Reykjavik, because there's not a lot of cultural sites. So you really do spend most of the time, even people who go to Reykjavik for a couple of days, they spend a day out in the Golden Circle touring around and seeing the waterfalls. And I will tell you, the best waterfall we saw, and it's kind of considered one of the best waterfalls in the world, Gullfoss, is in the Golden Circle. So there are people who will go to Iceland for 2 or 3 days and see really one of the most beautiful waterfalls in the world at Goldfall or Gullfoss, which you don't have to go around the ring to see. But obviously, if you do what we did and kind of drive a little bit more, it was very relaxing, and it was very easy drives. So these were not difficult things to do. So I will encourage, on behalf of Iceland, that I call now in Iceland, you're going to go to a.
You have to register now as a foreign agent.
Well, look, I mean, there is the Reykjavik summit, has that history for those who remembered all of us, I think, are old enough to remember the Reykjavik summit with Gorbachev. That was a place of the coming together. And by the way, you can see where the North American, saw that a few places where the North American and Eurasian plate are split off. And we did on the first day go to this active volcano that's literally spewing volcanic stuff right now. I guess it's called magma, and it's coming out of the earth. We actually, let me just, I don't want to show pictures, but if I show one picture, I will show you this. This was the magma of the this was one of the most amazing things to see. I will show you if I get a good shot of it. We actually got to see, hold it one second. Yeah, let me just I'm just going to share one thing. I know looking at people's vacation pictures is one of the worst things to do, but hold it one second. I'm just going to share one thing. And
If it's in the dark, you can nap.
Yeah, I know, but here you'll see this. Yeah, that happened. I mean,
That was great.
That's a real thing happening right now. It doesn't happen like constantly. So, you have to kind of catch it the right time, but it happens enough that we were there for about a half hour and we got to see that. So that was That's pretty cool. So that's an active volcano that started a few months ago. And don't ask me to pronounce it. I won't even attempt to pronounce the name of that place.
Mark, what was the name of that place?
It's not pronounceable. I promise you. Anyways, it is. That was a.
The Welsh language is like that.
Yeah, it's like
The
Welsh.
Wales,
It's this long. It's
The
like
names are
every
this
one of
long.
them. Yeah.
All different sets of vowels too, or none, as the case
Or
may be in
no-
Wales,
or no vowels.
in Welsh.
But the other thing that's weird about Iceland is that they actually, even though it's a small country and there's not that many people there, they have a few places that are called the same thing. You know, like because as they say, it's everything was descriptive. So there was a place called what was it, Valda. Varmaheld, which means warm slope. And there's like 2 or 3 Varmahelds. I'm like, well, wait a second. It's not that big of a country. You don't have to call 3 different places Varmaheld, warm slope. And there's like 2 Selfosses. There's 2, which is some type of foss is waterfall. So you see foss everywhere. So you see, it's like they just, they say, oh, this is a warm hill, but they didn't bother changing the name of it. So if you look and, if you do a search, you could wind up in the wrong place, which is what happened to us with the volcanoes. We put the wrong place, initially, but fortunately it's a small enough country that you can reposition. And we were only 20 minutes out of the way, but it is weird that they can't come up with more, unique names for places. Anyways, I will tell
Rabbi,
you.
getting back on our subject, I don't know, you've been gone, so you don't know, but CNN's had a documentary on the history of Jerusalem.
Oh, really?
Couple of weeks. Yeah, it's been very interesting.
I heard they were doing it. I didn't know they actually started it.
Yeah, it's kind of very, they have Jody Magnus on there and a few others.
They're running it at a certain
like
day,
on Sunday evenings or something. Yeah.
And it's
good.
good.
Very interesting.
It's well done.
I thought so.
I heard it was slow.
It's slow, but it's interesting though. If you, a lot of they tell kind of the story of the Bible, then they go off, and it's very interesting.
So you'd recommend, and how many episodes do you think it is?
I don't know how long it is. There's been 2 so far.
So I'll take a look at it.
You might be able to get it on demand. I don't know.
So we had a meeting this morning. I was on a meeting just to talk about TV for a second. It's amazing. I had a discussion with the Buffalo Jewish Federation this morning about the fact that one of the shows that JLTV is working on, a show called The Word with Scott Rubin, who moved back to Buffalo. He's doing a Bible discussion show with comedians and with actors.
Oh, that must be good.
And so he's now going to be filming it. Maybe in front of a live audience. He's going to be filming it in Buffalo. And so we were just talking to the Buffalo Federation about becoming a sponsor and being a partner in it, because what's so cool about it is that it's being filmed in their backyard, and it's a really great show. We're hoping people will kind of take a gander at it, because it's a meaningful discussion. Most of you have met Scott. He would come occasionally to Torah study when he was here in LA. But yeah, he moved back last year to Buffalo. And so we had talked about doing the show here in LA before he left, of bringing in actors, kind of like doing a Bill Maher forum discussion about the Torah. And again, to kind of enter into it with the idea like, this is important, but let's have an engaging, meaningful discussion with people who otherwise wouldn't be discussing the Torah. So it's called The Word with Scott Rubin, and it's available. I mean, you can watch it on YouTube, but we did 9 episodes so far. And I say we, because I'm helping to produce it, but Scott is the host, and he's the one who's booking the guests. And in the next round that we're starting in a few weeks is going to have some really great guests. And the first kind of 9 were a test to kind of get it off the ground. And now we're hoping, we just don't know how to do it from Buffalo. Right now we're doing it on Zoom, but yeah, Torah discussions like we have, and Midrash discussion, the feeling is once people start engaging in it, it really is, it is a great addition to life. And so that's our goal. So it's definitely different. Let's put it that way. So with that being said, Rosemary's not able to be here today. And she's okay, but she's out traveling today, actually. And so our other reader of Midrash, and purveyor of Torah. Because, by the way, one of the things that Judith and I haven't talked about yet is what we're going to do for high holidays. Because Judith is in charge of the Midrash. She's in charge of the Haftarah. And we're going to come up with some cool things, I think, no matter what.
We're going to sing it. We're going to like chant it. Are we going to?
Oh, I have an idea. Well, since everybody who's on here today, you're all Torah scholars. What I'm actually thinking of doing this year is maybe no, I'm not going to tell you. It's going to be a surprise. I'm going to talk to Judith, but it's going to use media. It's going to use
That's
media.
not fair.
Ooh.
Okay, I will tell you. I can't go that far. First of all, I can't keep my mouth shut anyways. But the second thing is I can't take you that close. So I had a dream about it, Judith. Maybe it was a lucid dream because I haven't slept well with time changes, but an animated going back and forth between animation and Judith telling the story of Samuel.
Oh, it's one of my favorites.
Animation. Isn't that cool?
I like it.
Yeah.
Samuel's birth. And I don't know. It just came to me. Like it came to me. I don't even know if it was yesterday or last night. I can't even be sure. But the idea was, it's assuming that some people are not going to be with us. And last year, Judith was so generous with her time that she actually pre-recorded it. But rather than we could be lazy and just have Judith on video doing the same thing every year because now we've captured it. But no,
then I don't have to put shoes on or makeup or anything. I just
she had to get all dolled up for the Haftarah. She had to come on camera, but no, she did a great job last year doing it on camera. But I thought maybe doing some animation in addition to her reading so beautifully the Haftarah. Cool. But anyways, so that would
I like it.
That would be a cool thing. So I got to get working on. I'm gonna if we're gonna pull this off, I'm gonna get on it. So I'm gonna talk to one of our animators, the guy who actually did Chad Gadya. He did the goat. If you saw the Chad Gadya video, he's the guy who did that. Not necessarily the same style. Well, yeah, I know it was creepy, but the Bible, Judith, the Bible is pretty creepy. As we're about to look, there's a midrash we're about to read today that is very creepy. But yeah, I mean, not to be scary, but the Samuel story could have some really good animation. And so using different forms of media would be really cool. And again, I think animation presents a great way of doing the Bible because people, for some reason, artistically, they've been more inclined to accept artistic representations of it rather than human representations of the actual stories, because then people start getting bent out of shape with the actors and with the those kind of things. And I think people, when we don't
want to whitewash it.
Yeah, but it's also well, that's true too. But there is an issue of people. Well, look, we've had artistic representations of the Bible for 2,000 years, primarily by the church, but we've been exposed to it. We accept it. Acting versions of it, we've had some classics, but if you're really honest about it, there is a problem, not only in that there aren't a lot of people who've taken the Bible seriously enough, like DeMille, to do a Bible epic, but we're so uptight about it that if somebody does it today, they got to wade through a whole lot of nonsense from people who will go crazy over their depictions. And so people either have to kind of go a little weird, like the Noah, like the Noah version, the Aronofsky Noah, or again the Exodus version that Ridley Scott did. People don't know what to do with it. And again, I think it's a function to some extent of how uptight we've gotten today with bringing the Bible to life. But we might still get people to buy in, and I don't mean just Jews, but people of all backgrounds when we do some animated versions of it. So it's just a thought. I'm going to try to bring it to reality in the next few weeks. I hope I have enough time. It's unfortunately I have no artistic talent, so I'll leave that to the artists to do. But anyways, talk too much about it already. Now, see, once I said it, now I've said it. So anyways, now I have to do it. So Judith, just to remind people of where we were, the last thing we talked about a couple of weeks ago, because we didn't have a session last week. So if you weren't here last week, that's okay, because we weren't I don't even know where I was on that at that exact moment, but I will tell you, been thinking about Midrash. Being in Iceland didn't make me think about it less. It's a place of saga and of myth, if you will, and so you kind of think about your own myth there. And so what we were talking about last time was the end of Leviticus, which is or actually the part of Leviticus that we actually not the end of Leviticus, the kind of the beginning of Leviticus, and the fact that it jumps the Midrash, or at least the way that Ginsburg assembled the Midrash for this collection, it kind of jumps to the end because of Leviticus, because there is no other narrative. And what Ginsburg did is he linked together the part of Leviticus that talks about the dedication of the Mishkan, the tabernacle, to the beginning of Numbers, which talks about the same thing. We are going to go back and look at a Midrash, probably not this week, but next week, of one of the only other narratives that's captured within Leviticus, which is the story of the guy who violates Shabbat. That one we're gonna see a little tiny Midrash on, but we really are dealing with the fallout of Nadav and Avihu getting burned up, the dedication, and then the rededication of the Mishkan after that, and the fact that Leviticus deals with things like leprosy in the portions of Tazria Metzora, the middle of the book of Leviticus deals with leprosy, which is what we talked about a couple of weeks ago, and the fact that there is Midrash about leprosy, and the fact that the last things we read about are why certain people got leprosy, and the fact that people got it as punishments. It was conceived, and again, it wasn't leprosy, it was the skin disease, tsarat, that people got it as punishment, and specifically God would punish people with this disease, and in some cases, again, they'd be healed from the disease, but the disease was one of the things that the Levites did, was diagnose it and kind of be the people who could help in the cure of it as well. So that's what we left off with last time, 2 weeks ago. And now we're going to continue with some of what's in Leviticus, and also, confusingly, some of what's in Numbers, the book of Numbers. So it's going to kind of go back and forth in the Midrash right now between things that you'll find in Leviticus and things that you'll find in the book of Numbers. So this is why, again, Leviticus is filled with laws. And so the Midrash will occasionally deal with laws, but it'll deal with it like, okay, well, why do we have this law? And that's what the Midrash will try to do, is explain why we have this law. So that's kind of where we're picking up. So we had a little discussion about leprosy, and now we have something else. And another important law.
Another important law revealed on this day referred to the celebration of the second Passover feast. Mishael and Elzaphan, who had attended to the burial of Nadab and Avihu, were godly men, anxious to fulfill the commandments of God. Hence they went to the house where Moses and Aaron instructed the people, and said to them, "We are defiled by the dead body of a man. Wherefore are we kept back, that we may not offer an offering of the Lord in his appointed season among the children of Israel?" Moshe at first answered that they might not keep the Passover offering to their condition of uncleanness, but they argued with him, asking that even if, owing to their condition, they might not partake of the sacrificial meat, they might at least be permitted to participate in the offering of the Paschal lamb by having the blood of the offering sprinkled for them. Moses admitted that he could not pass judgment on this case before receiving instruction concerning it from God. For Moshe had the rare privilege of being certain of receiving revelations from God whenever he applied to him. Therefore bade Mishael and Elzaphan await God's judgment concerning their case, and sentence was indeed revealed immediately.
Yeah, and so this is an explanation, which the Midrash does, explaining why we have laws. Now, this law is actually found in Numbers, which is this weird story of the fact that we have a second Passover a month later. Yeah, the Pesach Sheni is on the calendar, and people don't really know what to do with it. And the rabbis didn't know what to do with it 2,000 years ago. They're like, what do we have a Pesach Sheni for? Where would you even need to have a second Passover? And the issue is that during the time of the temple, when there were priests that could have come in contact with something that would render them unavailable for Passover, that there's a way for them to celebrate Passover, because according to this, Moses was just like, yeah, too bad, you're out of luck. And there's no Passover for you that year. But they were like, no, these two people who are Levites, Mishael and Elzaphan, are the people who are designated to deal with the dead bodies of Nadav and Abihu. They came into contact with dead. They would not be able to be part of the Passover offering. So there has to be a way for them to do it. And that gives them the Pesach Sheni. The other reason that someone would have a Pesach Sheni, by the way, is if they're traveling and they're not able to be around to offer a sacrifice, which again is one of the few sacrifices that people had to take part in. They had to actually take their lamb and sacrifice it and eat part of it. Sorry about that. I'll stop in a second. The Pesach Sheni was actually a way for people to celebrate Passover if they weren't able to do it in the first place. And so the rabbis come up with this, oh, well, this is why those guys couldn't celebrate Passover that year. So there's a midrash on why we have a Pesach Sheni, which again, the rabbis are kind of saying, why do we have a Pesach Sheni? Well, here's why. And so if we ever have a temple again, that's what we'll need. So it's a midrash about a law, which again is a law that the rabbis kind of were confused. Well, not confused about, but basically kind of questioning, is it really something we need to have? Well, yeah, those guys needed it.
Do people do anything with it now? Like, is it recognized even if like by some communities, even if they don't?
Yeah, there are some traditions that people do on Pesach where they'll read part of the Torah, the Pesach part on that day.
On Sheni.
There are people who will do stuff, but even Orthodox Jews don't really celebrate Pesach Sheni. It's on the calendar for like people who really weren't able to celebrate Pesach, that they could do that if they didn't have a Pesach Seder for whatever reason, whether they were like fighting, they were overseas or they were something like that. That could happen, but it doesn't happen a lot. There's never, like, you and I, or most of us, are never in a situation where we can't celebrate Pesach. Pesach. Most of us who've like been around for a day or two, we found a place where we had to, I was one year I had to do Pesach in Liverpool, but it was cool actually. There are holidays where we have to find a way of doing it. That's what kind of the beauty of Pesach is we're going to do it. But yeah, it's still on the calendar. If you look at a calendar, Jewish calendar, it'll say Pesach Sheni, and I don't know what to say other than it's there, and it's there for us in case we didn't get to do it. So it's there, and ER. All right. So that is, so the next law that we are going to get into, well, this is a little bit less law. This is more midrash, if you will.
It was on this day also that God said to Moshe, a heavy blow of fate had fallen upon Aaron today, but instead of murmuring, he thanked me for the death that robbed him of his two sons, which proves his trust in my justice toward them, who had deserved punishment more severe. Go then and comfort him, and at the same time tell him that he come not at all times into the holy place within the veil before the mercy seat, which is upon the ark. These last words greatly aggrieved Moshe, who not thought, woe is me. For it seems as if Aaron had lost his rank, since he may not at all times enter the sanctuary. The statement of the periods for his admission into the sanctuary is also so indeterminate that I am not at all sure whether they are to recur hourly or daily or annually, every 12 years, perhaps even 70, or not at all. But God replied, thou art mistaken. I was not thinking of fixing a certain time, whether hour or day or year, for Aaron may enter the sanctuary at any time. But when he does so, he must observe certain ceremonies. The ceremonies that Aaron, as well as every other high priest, had to perform on the Day of Atonement before his entrance into the Holy of Holies were symbolical of the three patriarchs, of the four wives of the patriarchs, and of the 12 tribes. Only by depending upon the merits of these pious men and women might the high priest venture to enter the Holy of Holies without having to fear the angels that filled this space. These were obliged to retreat upon the entrance of the high priest, and even Satan had to flee whenever he beheld the high priest and did not dare to accuse Israel before God.
Yeah. So this is a lot more Midrash, right? Pure Midrash, but there is the kernel of a law here, right? So it's an interesting construct, the way that the way this Midrash rolls out. There's a lot going on in this Midrash. I don't even know where to begin, but there is a kernel of a law. Does everybody see what the law is here? What's the act? There is an actual law here. There's a law that is the basis for this Midrash. Yom Kippur. Yom Kippur. Achrei Mot, which is the portion after the death, which is basically, literally the middle of the book of Leviticus. We're talking about here, chapters 18, 19, 20. We're like right in the middle of Leviticus. These chapters deal with the fact that the Holy of Holies is cleaned out once a year. And it's the place and time when Aaron has to do his job. And then any of the successive high priests do their job, and they have to do it that day. So this is the law of Yom Kippur and what happens at Yom Kippur. So Yom Kippur is introduced to us after the death of Nadav and Avihu. So that's the original context of Yom Kippur. We forget that like Yom Kippur doesn't happen or may not have happened if there wasn't the death of Nadav and Avihu. So it's almost like, again, why is this holiday so unique and so important? Well, we know it's the Day of Atonement, but we forget that the actual atonement that was first done was actually a specific atonement, which was for Nadav and Avihu. So that's the kernel of it there. But there's a whole lot of Midrash here, which is, where do you even begin? Well, let's begin with the first line of what Judith said, which is, Aaron has to keep his mouth shut because, again, his son's just died. But Aaron keeps his mouth shut because it could have been worse. Which is weird because, wow, it could have been worse. And what do you take away from that? That their death could have been more painful, maybe, or again, it's hard to imagine what's the worst version of it? But basically, that's what the Midrash just said. It could have been worse. The punishment could have been more severe. That's what they mean by that. And then when God says to him, comfort him and tell him when he's supposed to go, Moses, as the Midrash says, takes that as, oh no, now Aaron, this is really bad. Now Aaron can't go into the Mishkan whenever he wants. And that's when God says, no, that's not what I meant. What I meant is there's a time when he has to go, which is Yom Kippur. He can go in other times, but he has to do this on Yom Kippur. And this is when it's so special, because if he does it at that moment on Yom Kippur, anything that he does at that moment will be atoned. Satan has no power on that day. And again, we're not talking about Satan, Rosemary's Baby Satan. We're talking about Satan, the accuser, the guy whose job it is as the angel to be the prosecuting attorney and to bring up all the bad things that you and I and every other person has been doing over the last year. That Satan cannot do anything on that day. He has to get out of God's presence, because what Aaron is doing on that day just blows everything else up. That's how powerful Yom Kippur is. And so this is kind of like, wow, now you know why Yom Kippur is such a big deal, because it was during the time of the Mishkan and then the temple, the day when that's when everything happened. The energy that came out of that place at that moment, even the angels were as we say, even the angels were trembling. Even the angels had to clear out on this day. And so that's what is so special about that moment, that time. It's not that Aaron can't go into the Mishkan anytime, But on that time, he has to be there at that moment. He has to take part in this ritual of allowing this to happen so that everybody can be forgiven for their sins. So what starts out as being a disaster turns into an opportunity for forgiveness for everybody. And that's what we forget about Yom Kippur, which is why we read that at Yom Kippur. We read that section of what Aaron does. We don't read what Nadav and Avihu did. That's only 3 lines. But what we do read is line after line after line of what we do in order to purify ourselves and get clean and get Kippur. How do we get repentance? I mean, there's not even a good translation for that. But the Kippur, the Kippur that goes on Yom Kippur is that energy that cleanses and gives everybody a fresh start. And the power of that moment. So it's a pretty powerful midrash. And again, let's read this next section.
Aaron's grief about the death of his sons was turned to joy when God, on the day of their death, granted him the distinction of receiving a direct revelation from the Lord, which prohibited both him and his sons from drinking wine or strong drink when they went into the tabernacle.
Yeah, and that's an explanation of the reason that we actually also think that maybe Nadav and Avihu did what they did, which is that they were under the influence. Because the next thing it says after that is that that God tells Moses and Aaron not to have the priests drink when they're offering up, when they're doing their job. When they're on their clock, they can drink when they're not on the job, but when they're on the job, they do not drink. So again, that led the Midrash, as we already read when we read about Nadav and Avihu a few weeks ago, for them to say that's what was the problem, is they were drinking, they were under the influence, or they were under the influence of something when they made this offering. They didn't have a clear head. Well, the Torah tells us that in the next line, that the priests are not allowed to do this. They're not allowed to drink. But it also interestingly tells us here that Aaron gets to speak to God directly. And so that experience also turns this horrible day of his 2 sons' death into a day where he felt extra close to God. So he gets the laws of Yom Kippur. He gets this law that he gets directly from God, which according to, usually God speaks to Moses and Moses tells Aaron. Here is an example of God speaking directly to Aaron. So in this weird way, Aaron feels closer to God in the moment that he wouldn't have normally felt close to God at all, which is when his sons die, is that God turned his back on him. But no, God didn't turn his back on him. God actually spoke to him directly. So that's an interesting little thing there. And again, we looked at this, by the way, we looked at Leviticus chapter 10. It is right there. I trust me when I tell you, and I could open it up right now, show you again, but it's 3 lines about Nadav and Avihu's death, how to cleanse, and a little bit in there about not how to cleanse, and then we have to skip a few chapters to get to Achrei Mot. We actually have, I don't want to confuse people, but because we've already talked about it, we have the death of Aaron's sons, Nadav and Avihu, at the beginning of Shmini. Then we have cleansing it, like you got to cleanse it, and then you don't drink. Then we have the Tazria Mitzvah about leprosy, and then we have the Achrei Mot portion, which is about cleansing it in detail on Yom Kippur. So that's why the Midrash kind of follows that pattern, is it's following the way the Torah has it, which is why it's a little disjointed, but it's disjointed in the Torah a little bit. So the Midrash is following the Torah, or again, the way Ginsburg organized it, it's following the Torah. And I say the way Ginsburg organized it because Leviticus Rabbah, which is the big old collection of commentary of Midrash on Leviticus, Vayikra Rabbah, doesn't follow this kind of organization. The Midrash is very scattered and goes back and forth on stuff in that section. You really have to, what he does is compile it and kind of make it follow the chronology of the Torah. It's not like that in Vayikra Rabbah. I mean, it does comment on verses, so it is sometimes there, but it goes back and forth between other things, and you can't follow it and say, oh, well, where was I? You can go on for pages and pages without getting back to anything that's actually in Leviticus. So I will tell you that. And there's wonderful stuff in Vayikra, and we've actually read some of it, but we haven't read, it wasn't part of Leviticus. It wasn't part of Vayikra. It was part of something we read about, Esther, for example. I mean, it jumps all over the place. So, all right, there's another thing that now we're going to skip into numbers, back to numbers. So again, it is what it is. It is. I'm just there to help you know that you're not crazy. For those who know the Torah and who've been reading with us, by the way, on the Wednesday nights, it is jumping around a lot. All right.
On this day also, Moshe received the revelation regarding the red heifer, whose significance was never vouchsafed to any other human being beside himself. On the following day, under the supervision of Eleazar, Aaron's son, it was slaughtered and burned. Although, beside this one, a number of other red heifers were provided in future generations, this one was distinguished by having its ashes kept forever, which, mingled with the ashes of other red heifers, were always used for the purification of Israel. But it is in this world alone that the priest can purify the unclean by sprinkling with this water of purification. Whereas in the future world, God will sprinkle clean water upon Israel, that they may be cleansed from all their filthiness and from all their idols.
Yeah, which is a line from Psalms, but or no, excuse me, from Isaiah, and is not from this part of the Bible at all. But yeah, that just jumped into Chukat, which is the place where we read about the red heifer, which is a law that the rabbis kind of recognize. We just don't get it, and the rabbis didn't get it. They didn't get it thousands of years ago. They didn't get it. They didn't get it. Like, why do you need a red heifer? Why do you burn the red heifer? Why do you take the ashes of the red heifer and mix it with water and then use that to purify? They're basically saying it makes no sense. Moses understands this. Moses hears it. And nobody else gets it. Nobody else hears it. It's only through Moses. It's not like a law that people go, oh yeah, that makes sense. They call it a chok. This is a law that defies rational explanation. And so what they're saying here is that Moses gets it. Oh, okay, I get it. God told me it. I know it. Must be reason for it. But it makes no sense. And it literally is, oh, you take water with ash in it and you throw it on people to make them clean? That doesn't seem to make them clean. That doesn't make the priest clean. That doesn't make anything clean. That's got ashes in it. It is not clean water. Wouldn't you use clean water to sprinkle on somebody? And that's what they said. Yeah, in the future world, that'll be the way things are. So in the world to come, God will use fresh water to sprinkle us clean. So they're basically saying, yeah, it seems a little odd. This is a strange law. And that is what they're saying by saying, yes, we don't really understand it. What, of course, is also interesting about this is that there's a recognition that while there might be other red heifers, and again, as we've talked about numerous times, we'll talk about it every time we talk about a red heifer, there are people right now spending millions of dollars trying to create a red heifer. So just so you know, this is real. This has been reported on in the New York Times, the Wall Street Journal. They've used it. They've made it. It's been in movies. It's been in the book, the Yiddish Policeman's Union. There is. What can you say? It's real to people, and the red heifer. They're trying to genetically engineer a red heifer that'll be like the red heifer. But what the rabbi said just now is that there are parts of the ashes of the red heifer within every red heifer. Whenever they made a new red heifer ash combination, some of the original red heifer was there too. That original red heifer was used. Part of those ashes got mixed into everyone. So somewhere there was like the ashes of the first red heifer that they would throw a little bit into whenever they needed to do this.
Like the mother dough in sourdough, whatchamacallit, Bodines.
Yeah. Sourdough. Yeah, the sourdough. Yeah, it's weird. Yeah, it's definitely like that. And it is their recognition that this is weird. This is a weird deal. The whole thing. I mean, just they step back and go, yeah, this is a tough one. This is a tough one to explain. But God said it.
By a
God
red
did it.
heifer.
What?
Does, I said, what is meant by a red heifer? It seems to me a red heifer is a heifer that's sort of reddish.
Yeah, but it can't be like
mean-
a little, it can't be a little reddish. Well, I shouldn't say that. They could have been a little reddish during the time of the Torah. The rabbis and the modern rabbis are saying, no, there's like, this is a pure red heifer. There's no non-red skin, any hair on anywhere on this, like we're expecting it. So they've literally
Like-
created a situation so that you cannot find this. And so they genetically engineer it, and they keep trying to find this red heifer that they will get that is perfectly red. So as long as they can't find it, they can't really rededicate the temple, because when we get this red heifer, then we created Armageddon, essentially. It's literally creating something that will bring about the end of the world as we know it. And this is why making this red heifer is such a weird part of the modern relationship between really fringe Jewish groups and evangelical Christians, is that that's who's funding this. I mean, the people that are funding the development of this red heifer, and you're of course mixing ultra modern science with very strange biblical practices that the rabbis 1,000, 2,000, 2,500 years ago even couldn't explain. So the fact that we're trying to use modern science to unlock the secrets of something that the rabbis kind of said to themselves, I don't get it. That's the weird, like that's the crazy irony of this, which again, we have to hope that people don't actually get to do this. Otherwise, there are going to be people running around, and we know they're trying to blow up the Dome of the Rock so that they can, rebuild the temple and get a red heifer and create a new priest and create a new priesthood and create, this weird thing that will then allow Jesus to come back. I mean, not that the Orthodox who are behind it don't care about that part, but they want to get their temple back. And if the Christians who want that to happen so that they can get Jesus to come back, it's all part of their plan. It's a weird thing, but it's real. I mean, I'm not making this up. I mean, people have used it for fiction because it's one of those things that's stranger than fiction, and people are like, oh, let's turn that into a book, or let's turn that into a movie, because it is that show The Dig was based on this stuff. So people have used this as inspiration for stuff, but the rabbis actually had a different take on it, which is like, we don't get it. I mean, I'm not saying they put an end to it. They couldn't, but they definitely don't engage in it. You just read the Midrash on it, and it kind of said, well, when God's ready to bring about the next world, we won't even have the red heifer. I mean, that's what they just said. They basically said, when God is ready for the next world, when that happens, yeah, we won't have a red heifer. I mean, you could actually say that to somebody who says, well, we need to make a new red heifer. You could say, well, what about the Midrash that, God will sprinkle us with pure water. We won't have a red heifer water. So again, just keep that in mind. I mean, that's what you just read that. So that is one possible traditional answer to it, which is we don't need a red heifer. That's what I would like to say to people. Plus it goes against my PETA instincts. My PETA instincts would tell you, I don't want to kill a cow for that. I don't want to kill a cow for anything. Anyways, all right. Oh, so now we're getting to another part that's in a little bit of Leviticus, but a lot in Numbers, the book of Numbers, which is about the menorah, which we read in Behalotcha. And again, this is the third portion in Numbers, in the book of Numbers. So it's early in the book of Numbers. We have an interesting reflection on how important the menorah is. So let's read this.
The eighth law revealed on this day was the lighting of the candlestick. After all the princes of the tribes had brought their gifts to the sanctuary, and God had bidden Moshe to let them offer each his offering one a day throughout 12 days, Aaron, profoundly agitated, thought, "Woe is me. It seems as if, owing to my sin, my tribe has been excluded by God from participating in the dedication of the sanctuary." Thereupon God said to Moshe, "Go to Aaron and say to him, do not fear that you are slighted and are deemed inferior to the other princes of the tribes. You, on the contrary, shall enjoy a greater glory than all of these, for you are to light the lamps of the candlestick in the sanctuary." When Israel heard God's command that the lights of the sanctuary be lighted, they said, "O Lord of the world, you bid us make a light for you that are the light of the world and with whom light dwells." But God replied, "Not because I need your light do I bid you burn lamps before me, but only that I might thereby distinguish you in the eyes of the nations that will say, 'Behold, the people of Israel, they hold up a light before him who bestows light upon the world.' By your own eyesight can you see how little need I have of your light. You have the white of the eye and the black of the eye, and it is by means of this dark part of the eye that you are enabled to see, and not through the light part of the white of the eye. How should I, that am all light, have need of your light?" God furthermore said, "A mortal of flesh and blood lights one light by means of another that is burning. I have brought forth light out of darkness. In the beginning, darkness was upon the face of the deep, whereupon I spoke, 'Let there be light,' and there was light. Shall I now be in need of your illumination? No, I commanded you to light the candles in the sanctuary that I might distinguish you and give you another opportunity of doing a pious deed, the execution of which I will reward in future world by letting a great light shine up before you. And furthermore, if you will let the candles shine before me in my sanctuary, I shall protect from all evil your spirit, the candle of the Lord."
So this is a little meditation on Bahalot about the menorah. And again, I promise you, we're about to read about Hanukkah, so don't worry. Yes, it is here. And by the way, we have those of you who've been with us for a few years know we don't read about the Maccabees. I mean, like, it doesn't happen. Like, they don't make an appearance in the Midrash, which tells you a little bit about the way the rabbis really felt about the Maccabees, which was they're better for a lot of reasons. They're better left unsaid, not talked about. They're not our high point. Honestly, I mean, in many ways, they did not look at that as a high point of Jewish history. Or if the high point existed, it was like a flash compared to the rest of the time of the Maccabees, because Maccabees are only in charge for about 100 years. But like the good part of the Maccabees lasts for like a year. So they have a reason the way they don't talk about them a lot. And again, we've talked about this before, because they don't want to inspire people to fight against the Romans like the Maccabees, because you can't beat the Romans. You can beat the Greeks. You can beat not even Greeks, Greek Syrians, but you can't beat the Romans. And so there was a lot of reasons why they didn't talk about the Maccabees. But we are going to talk about them in just a moment. So just hold off. Don't worry about it. First, though, but the menorah itself, like, what do we have a menorah for? Like isn't God's light shining enough? And they asked that question. Like, yeah, God doesn't need a menorah. God is light. God's light. No, the reason we have a menorah is so that you remember, as Jews, as human beings, right, that you bring light to darkness. And this is what's so beautiful about this Midrash. Again, I always think about the menorah at Hanukkah. When we think about lights on Shabbos, by the way, we're about to get to that too. But no, the menorah was lit every day. And it was lit by the priests who actually get to say, the Mishkan, this place that God's light shines forth from the world, is a reminder that God doesn't need our light. God is light already, but we need the light, and we actually have the power to bring that light into the world. And this is what's so powerful. That we're literally partners with God in bringing light to the darkness. And the way we do that, by the way, is not by saying, "Oh, I lit the menorah." I lit Shabbat candles. I lit the Hanukkah lights. No, that doesn't count, right? The lighting is a metaphor. It is a action that allows us to remember that you can do a pious deed, right? That you can do a mitzvah, and that when you do a mitzvah, you are bringing light to the world. And the light itself is a mitzvah, right? So lighting the light is a mitzvah, and doing other mitzvahs that we're supposed to do as human beings to be lights to the world, this act reminds us to do it. And so we don't rely on the act itself. We don't allow, ourselves to fall into this idea, well, we did the ritual, so we don't have to do anything else. But yeah, we lit a light, and we are that light. And let's go out and be that light tomorrow, so, or today, because the menorah wasn't lit just in the darkness. Literally, it was lit, and it was lighting all the time. So it's a beautiful midrash, and it's again, there's a beautiful line in this too, which is that like an eye, you see out of the light part of your, well, of course, we know more, we know a lot more about the eye today than they did. But they brought up this one interesting point, which is it's the light part of the eye that we see through, that what makes that so visible is that the dark part of the eye allows us to see that light. And so to some extent, you see that light against the darkness. And there was a lot of darkness. I mean, they were literally acknowledging that the world is filled with a lot of darkness. I didn't say it in a depressing way, but they remind us that, yeah, don't say there's not dark. Of course there is. But that little part of your eye that actually sees is only there. You only recognize that because the rest of it surrounding it is darkness. So it's a midrash that reminds us that, yeah, it's oftentimes kind of dark, but you see the light is what you see, and a little bit of light can do that. So it's a beautiful reminder of what light, even a candle, even what a candle can do. So that's like the greatest example of that in my mind that I've seen in my life is the Yad Vashem Memorial in Israel, where one candle reflected is the metaphor for a life, and the life of this one child, unfortunately, that was killed during the Holocaust, Uziel Spiegel, and that one light that is reflected by all these other mirrors that you actually see the power of one light. It's one of the most powerful memorials of anything you'll ever see, because again, it's the darkness, it's the light against the darkness, and the power that one light will have if it is magnified and reflected by others. So yeah, so it's a great midrash on light and what the menorah actually represents, which is God doesn't need light, we need it, we're human. So here's another one. Here's Shabbos.
Simultaneously, with the command to light the sanctuary, Moshe received the instruction to celebrate the Shabbat by the lighting of candles. For God said to him, "Speak to the children of Israel. If you will observe my command to light the Shabbat candles, I shall permit you to live to see Zion illuminated, when you will no longer require the light of the sun. But my glory will shine before you, so that the nations will follow your light."
Yeah, so that's the line from Isaiah. You won't need the light will shine forth from Zion, illuminate the day, so that there is day all the time. So this wonderful midrash about Shabbat candles is significant because nowhere in the Torah does it say light Shabbat candles. Nowhere. I challenge you to show me in the Torah where it says to light Shabbat candles. It doesn't say. It doesn't say it. Doesn't say it. I'm laughing because I don't say it a lot, but nowhere in the Torah does it say to light Shabbat candles. But yet, of course, we think of it as the ultimate Shabbat experience. At some point, lighting candles on Shabbat became a tradition, and then it became required. But it was not required in the Torah. It's not there. As a matter of fact, as one of my rabbinic teachers taught me a long time ago, one can make the argument that it's actually like contrary to what you're supposed to do on Shabbat, which is why we do it just before Shabbat. Lighting candles on Shabbat, during Shabbat, is prohibited. But lighting candles for Shabbat, making Shabbat with the candles, okay. But it's not in the Torah. And it seems to be exceptionally precariously close to dancing on the line of, is that what we're supposed to do? But the rabbis here say, well, we get it kind of from the menorah, which is lit lights that we light, not on Shabbat, by the way. Every day we light the menorah. But maybe we can derive Shabbos lights from this. I will tell you a secret. I'm telling you secrets today. It's a secret day. Today, a secret I will tell you is that most likely we don't know where the tradition of lighting Shabbat candles came from. The most likely, I feel terrible even telling you this. The most likely place that we believe anthropologically, culturally, historically that we got candle lighting from, my friends, is the Zoroastrians. And when the Jews lived in Babylonia and lived in Iran and the Persian, under the Persian influence for a long time before it was called Iran, Persia, the Zoroastrians, there aren't many of them anymore, but when they were the predominant religion in the Middle East, they were very into lights. They loved lighting candles. They still do. I mean, Zoroastrian candle lighting, or excuse me, not candle lighting, but lighting of lights of I would say candles, and it's because they use that word here in the Midrash, but it was obviously before they were candles. They were lights. They were oil lights. They were lights that people would light for religious reasons. The Zoroastrians were very into lighting. The menorah is in the Torah. I did not say it. Let me stress again, it is there in the menorah, but it is not on Shabbos, and it is not on the Hagim, on the holidays that we begin every holiday with candle lighting. But the Zoroastrians were very into it, and it is most likely that we borrowed it from the Zoroastrians. That being said, the most famous time we light candles, besides the holidays and Shabbos, is Hanukkah. And so here we go, my friends, one of the few midrashim about Hanukkah and about the Maccabees that was tolerated. No, it couldn't be.
Because the menorah that they're talking about is 7 branches, not 9.
Absolutely. Absolutely, Judah. Any other questions or comments about that? Because I know I just blew people away with telling them that Shabbos candles are not in the Torah, but I have said it before. It's not the first time I've said it, but I don't say that to deconstruct or to historicize what is there. But I want to tell you, there's a reason why the rabbis need a midrash to explain Shabbat candles, because they knew that it's not in the Torah. Yeah, it's not. You got to find a midrashic basis for it because it's not there. So that's why we even have a midrash in it. And it's not, I wouldn't say it's a huge midrash, it's a tiny midrash, because by the time that the rabbis are talking to people, and now 2,000 years even after that, like nobody would even know that it's not in the Torah. I mean, you literally have to go through the whole Torah and you go page by page and go, hey, I was looking for Shabbat candles. Where is it? It's like, and by the way, it's not a conversation you want to bring up with Orthodox rabbis because, and again, I didn't tell you that, so you can go and confront your local Chabad rabbi and say, where's lighting candles in the Torah? You know, that's when you just want to be problematic and argumentative. But I'm telling you this because there is a midrash that we just read that explains it. But that's the only reason why I bring it up. And I don't want anybody to say that, like, I don't normally, it's not my job I don't feel to do this. There are Jewish scholars who their job is to kind of to anthropologize and to historicize. And I'm interested in it, by the way. It's not something I'm interested in it because I'm interested in history, but I don't find that to be my job. My job is not to go in there and tell people, oh, you want to know where that really came from? And there are rabbis who like that. It's never been my thing. And so I don't engage in it a lot. And so it's not something that I've said a lot, but there are people who, for various reasons, like to do that. I think it usually actually comes from a weird point of like wanting to tear stuff down. And unless you like can give me a good reason for obliterating, people's beliefs or traditions or rituals, I don't do it. But again, it is what it is. But I don't want to like just run over that and just tell people, hey, by the way, it's not there. There's been part of Jewish tradition for 2,000 years. By the way, that's enough for me to light Shabbat candles every week. I mean, I don't need it to be in the Torah for me to do it. By the way, I just want to make that clear. Also, to me, Jewish tradition as a command is a mitzvah by itself. The fact that my great grandmothers for generations and generations lit Shabbat candles is enough for me to be inspired to light candles. Maybe because I love history and because I love the power of ritual and the power of many people doing something for a long time that meant something to them. It connects me to it. But it doesn't have to be in the Torah, by the way, for me to do that. But that's, again, neither here nor there. That's not why we brought it up. It's in the Midrash, which is why we brought it up. So yeah, that's why we did that today. So let's read a little Maccabee Midrash, which again, few and far between.
Aaron was distinguished not only by being selected to dedicate the sanctuary through the lighting of candles. God ordered Moshe to communicate to his brother the following revelation. The sanctuary will, on another occasion, also be dedicated by the lighting of candles, and then it will be done by the descendants, the Hasmoneans, for whom I will perform miracles and to whom I will grant peace. Hence, there is greater glory destined for you than for all the other princes of the tribes. For their offerings to this sanctuary shall be employed only as long as it endures, but the lights of the Hanukkah festival will shine forever. And moreover, your descendants will bestow the priestly blessing upon Israel, even after the destruction of the temple.
Yeah, it's a beautiful midrash about Hanukkah. And of course, assumes that the temple's been destroyed. So I will tell you, the midrash clearly is from a time when the temple's been destroyed. But it's a beautiful teaching, which is that long after there's a menorah for you to light in the temple, there'll be a Hanukkah. And that 9 candelabra that Judith just referred to will last a lot longer than the temple. And it's your descendants, the Hasmoneans, who were in fact priests, right? They really never were supposed to be king. They were never supposed to have that combined office. They're priests. They're Kohanim. And they're going to be the ones who light this new light. And that light's going to shine even after the temple's destroyed. And that's going to be something, Aaron, that you get to have that should comfort you too. Because remember, we're still in Aaron dealing with the loss of his sons right now. He's still in grief. That Aaron is now comforted by the knowledge that his descendants will light that menorah, and then people will recreate it when they light their Hanukkah on Hanukkah. And even beyond that, they'll do the Birkat Kohanim, they'll do the Yevarechecha Adonai V'Yishmerecha, they'll do that blessing, the priestly benediction, even after the temple is destroyed. They'll still be doing that in synagogues. They'll still be doing that around a Shabbat table. That tradition, the Birkat Kohanim, is going to stay forever too. Those things will never stop, even after the temple is destroyed. And so it's not a lot. It's actually like kind of just a line or two that, and it doesn't, by the way, say the Maccabees did anything like really special, because God did it. It says that God made the miracle. I will perform miracles for them. I will, give them this special, role to play in it, but it's not about them. And by the way, that's a little bit, if you think about it, it's a little bit of the way for the rabbis to say, yeah, the Maccabees were okay, but it was only through the grace of God that they did anything. So this is the rabbi's way of incorporating a little bit of Hanukkah, a little bit of the Maccabees, a little bit of the Hasmoneans, but like I said, just a little bit. We don't get it a lot. And so in this whole, like discussion of the menorah, which you'd think this is a perfect time to talk about the menorah. That's it. That's it for the menorah. But again, this is the original menorah, 7 lights, and then the Hanukkah is 9 is the 8 days plus the shamash. So yeah, not a lot about the Maccabees even here. So I guess you can make the argument that the argument of the silence on the Maccabees kind of tells you that the rabbis were not fond of them. They were not fond of these guys, or again, definitely the descendants of Judah and his brothers were not. They didn't feel the highlight of Jewish history, but they did give us the Hanukkah, and they did have that. Clearly, God did some miracles for them. So, any other comments or reflections on that? But you won't find a lot of Maccabee discussion. And by the way, could they have? Yeah, because it was in some cases recent history for them. So they could have incorporated some stuff about the Hasmoneans if they felt that they were a better reflection of Jewish values than in fact that they were, based on what we know from Josephus. Which if we didn't have Josephus, we wouldn't know much about the Maccabees at all. The lines about them in the rabbinic texts are so small that we wouldn't even really know the real history of the Maccabees if it wasn't for Josephus and the books of the Maccabees that the church kept. And we really would know hardly anything about them. So if you could rely just on a midrash like we just read, that'll be all you got. Not a lot. All right, so that's a little bit more about the lights, and we'll read a little bit more.
The candlestick that Aaron lighted in the sanctuary was not the common work of mortal hands, but was wrought by a miracle. When God bade Moses fashion a candlestick, he found it difficult to execute the command, not knowing how to set to work to construct it in all its complicated details. God therefore said to Moshe, "I shall show you a model." He then took white fire, red fire, and green fire, and black fire. And out of these 4 kinds of fires, he fashioned a candlestick with its bowls, its knops, and its flowers. Even then, Moshe was not able to copy the candlestick, whereupon God drew its design upon his palm, saying to him, "Look at this and imitate the design I have drawn on your palm." But even that did not suffice to teach Moshe how to execute the commission, whereupon God bade him cast a talent of gold into the fire. Moshe did as he was bidden, and the candlestick shaped itself out of the fire. As on this occasion, so upon other occasions also did God have to present the things tangibly before Moshe in order to make certain laws intelligible to him. In this way, for example, at the revelation concerning clean and unclean animals, God showed one specimen of each to Moshe, saying, "This you shall eat, this you shall not eat."
Yeah, I don't know what to say about this midrash other than it makes Moses look a little thick. Now, part of it is that, at least maybe with the menorah, that you can make the argument, well, it's pretty intricate design, which it does. I mean, this is kind of the rabbis admitting that the intricacies of the menorah seem very detailed, which they are. I mean, the way these calyxes are described and the way these, it's like, why is there so much detail about it? And again, the midrash on it is that it's there because Moses couldn't figure it out. And God just kept trying to explain it to him, couldn't get it. He drew it for him, couldn't do it. And then finally actually makes it for him because he can't figure it out. He just doesn't sink in. Okay, you can make that argument because the design is very complicated. It really is. I mean, if you look at it, it is very detailed. But it still doesn't explain then the next line, which is, on this occasion and on other occasions, God couldn't explain it to Moses, which again makes it really kind of weird that Moses doesn't understand. Well, it's almost as if the rabbis are explaining why we have details in the Torah that sometimes seem to go overboard. And so it's kind of like it's their way of saying, well, when the Torah goes into these kind of details, it's because Moses couldn't get it. And again, it's kind of like if Moses couldn't get it, then it's easy for us not to get it either. So there is this kind of recognition that there are things in the Torah that we don't, we need to have explanations on. Which then gets us, and you can hear my dog in the background making the noises of I need attention, that one of the things that is interesting here is that in the next section of the Bible, of Leviticus, I should say the next section after the lights, but and the lights are described in Leviticus too. So going back and forth between Leviticus and Numbers, we said, is going to happen. And we're going to see it in the next section as well. What's interesting, of course, is that the next section in Shemini, after the death of Aaron's sons, we have an explanation of what animals are clean and not clean. We have the first laws of kashrut. And in some cases, God will say, okay, well, they have to have hooves and they have to chew their cud, or they have to have fins and they have to have scales. But there are other times when God actually says, well, you can eat this, you can eat that, you can't eat that, you can't eat that, you can't eat that. And it's actually mostly what you can't eat. And so when we get those kind of explanations, it's kind of like the rabbis are saying, it's because Moses needed to actually see what it was. And so there is this understanding that God has to, in some cases, give discussion, very detailed descriptions to Moses that we just can't figure this stuff out, and that Moses couldn't figure it out, let alone us. It's not that Moses isn't particularly not clear on this stuff. It's that none of us would be, and so we need to get explanations one by one. And so this is what happens with the explanation. And I was going to show you the Torah in Shemini where it talks about which animals you can eat and which ones you can't. That sometimes we actually need to see, or Moses needs to see, this one's good, this one's not good. And again, mostly this one's not good. So that isn't in that part of the Torah. It is in Leviticus, literally right after the death of Aaron's sons. So again, we're going back and forth between Leviticus and Numbers. I know it's a little confusing, but it kind of follow the chronology of where this goes in the Torah. So that is the end of that section. Now I think we'll start this, though the problem is that, hold it a second. The next section is a really long section. And actually what'll be interesting, I'll show you this. It actually skips to a new section in Ginsburg's book. So he kind of goes into what we read today, which is again some of the book of Numbers, which is the census that takes place here. So maybe what we'll do is we'll read the first paragraph here and we'll break, because you can see this next section, which is a discussion of we remember we actually already read the Midrash on what those different tribes brought. which was from Parshat Naso, the second part of Numbers. Look how long this section is. So this is a section. These sections are about the censuses that go on at the very beginning of the book of Numbers. So we have a census of the tribes, and then we have a census of the Levites, a separate section for the censuses of the Levites. So what we'll do is we'll start the beginning of this section, and then this is where we'll leave off. So this is, to some extent, because we are going to jump to there is one more part of Leviticus that we're going to come to, as I said, that is kind of out of order, but we're kind of going to now, like, really kind of more jumping into Numbers. So we've read about the dedication of the temple, the Mishkan. We read about the death of Nadav and Avihu. We read about some of the stuff, a little bit about leprosy and about Achrei Mot, about the Yom Kippur. And so we're kind of now, the rest of Leviticus is really the holiness code, which are laws, and then through Bechar B'chukotai, which are like the curses and blessings if you keep the laws, which they don't do a lot of midrash on. We get to the census, and so this is we'll at least start it. So let's begin a little bit about census.
The 12 princes of the tribes. God, in his love for Israel, had frequent censuses taken of them, so that he might accurately estimate his possession.
Yeah, you wonder if it's supposed to be sensai, right?
Yes, that's why I didn't say it, because that doesn't fool me.
I don't know.
Censusim? No, that doesn't work.
Sensei.
In scarcely half a year, they were twice counted. Once shortly before the erection of the tabernacle, and the second time a month after its dedication. On the first day of the month of Iyar, Moshe received instructions to take a census of all men over 20 who were physically fit to go to war. He was ordered to take Aaron as his assistant, so that in case he should overlook some of the men, Aaron might remind him of them, for 2 are better than 1. They were also to take as their subordinate assistants Eleazar and Itamar, Aaron's sons, and a man each from the 12 tribes. These 12 men were appointed not only to conduct the census, but also to look after the spiritual welfare of their respective tribes, the sins of which would be upon their heads unless, with all their powers, they strove to prevent them. Moshe and Aaron nevertheless adjured the princes of the tribes, in spite of their high rank, not to tyrannize over the people, whereas on the other hand, they admonished the people to pay all due respect to their superiors.
Right. And so this is the beginning of Numbers. Let me just get this. I'm going to put it up just for 1 second for everybody to see. This is the very beginning of Numbers, which is it says right here, on the first day of the second month in the second year following the Exodus from the land of Egypt. So this tells us when it was done, which is why, they kind of like go back to this, which is that this is at Mount Sinai, right? This is when the census was taken again. So we know how many people there were when they come out of Egypt. And now we have another one, and it says specifically for able to bear arms. And it says, in addition to that, this line, associated with you shall be a man from each tribe, each one the head of his ancestral house. And then it goes through the names of these people. Reuben, Elitzur, son of Shedeur, this long list of names. And sure enough, of course, we almost always, and we did again this year too, we always have a kid who has a bar bat mitzvah and has to read this list of names. And it's, look, it's some of the names are hard. The name of the tribe is not necessarily hard, but sometimes the names of the names of the guy, or maybe his dad, are hard to say, like Shimon, the prince or the emissary of that tribe is Shalumiel ben Tsurishadai. I can't even say it right now. Tsurishadai. So Tsurishadai was his dad's name, which means essentially Shaddai. The other name for God is my rock, which is a nice name. I don't know any Tsurishadais, but these are some of the names are hard. So sure enough, a kid has to break his teeth. He or she will have to break his or her teeth on these names, but it is the list of names. And so the rabbis will now say, why do we have these people? Who are they? And of course, right away, Moses and Aaron are telling them, don't get out of line here. Just because you get to be a prince, just because you get to be the emissary of your tribe, doesn't mean you get to, let it get to your head. So don't tyrannize over the people. So you're supposed to respect people, but don't take advantage of your power. All right. So now we're we'll do some of this, which is the Midrash really on these people. The Midrash here is on their names. And again, a little bit about the tribes. I mean, obviously they're going to get to their names are somewhat reflective of their tribe. But they're going to play off the name. The names are unusual. These are not always, well, not all of them, but most of them are kind of unusual. We only see them here for the most part. And by the way, for the most part, we don't see the names. I mean, we see the names of, like, there's people named Shimon. There's always people named after the 12 tribes. There's always a Dan or Asher. Issachar is not a very common name, though there were some Issachars over Jewish history. But the names of the princes, yeah, most of them are not super common names. So it's not like we see a lot of these people. And so to do Midrash on their names, it's kind of like, oh, this is a perfect opportunity to do Midrash on stuff that, like, these are not common names. All right, so let's go through.
The names of these 12 princes of the tribes indicated the history of the tribes they represented. The prince of the tribe Reuven was called Elitzur. My God is a rock, referring to the ancestor of this tribe, Reuven, Jacob's son, who sinned, but owing to his penance was forgiven by God, who bore his sin as a rock bears the house built upon it. The name of Elitzur's father was Shidiur, cast into the fire. Because Reuven was converted to repentance and atonement through Judah, who confessed his sin when his daughter-in-law Tamar was about to be cast into the fire.
So that's a weird one. And they're not all weird like that. That one was really weird. So Reuben, we don't know a lot about Reuben, the son of Jacob, other than he does sleep with Bilhah, his father's concubine, which was a pretty big deal. I mean, that's not a good thing. And so he essentially lost his place as the firstborn son because of that. Now, of course, we know that Joseph, kind of takes over anyways, because Joseph is Joseph. But Reuben loses his right. Now, again, Reuben is the one who helped make sure that Joseph even survived. So he's not without good stuff, but he does commit this horrible sin. So Reuben is forgiven by God, even though, again, he carries this rock, if you will, the Tzur. Same word that we have in Tzuri Shaddai. Eli Tzur is like God. The word Eli is my God. So it's more common than the word Shaddai, which is another name for God, but is the more descriptive, I don't even know what to say, mystical name for God. Shaddai, it's a name we don't use a lot. But
the Hebrew name Shai from Shaddai?
No, it's a different root, but it means a treasure, word for treasure. But Shaddai, I wasn't even going to get into this. We're not even sure where the word Shaddai actually comes from. There's differences of opinion if it is connected to the rocks, which is God of the mountains, which is why God's called Shaddai. There's other possibilities that it means some kind of spirit. The Shadim were spirits. We don't know. We really don't know where the word Shaddai comes from. There's differences of opinion on it, but anyways, it's not. So the point here is that Elitzur is actually not an uncommon Hebrew name in modern Israel. It wasn't really a common name. So, by the way, some of these names have become common in Israel in the last 70 years, but were not common for the last 2,000 years. But Elitzur, you'll occasionally come across Israelis that mean, that have the name Elitzur, because the Israelis kind of, had to come up with a whole bunch of new, really good names, and there's Bibles full of them, but some of them were people just didn't name these people. So there's a lot that didn't come back. But anyways, these names are about Reuben. And one of the things that, again, according to this Midrash, is that Reuben started trying to find penance after what happened to Tamar. So when he realized that Judah admits his sin, that interestingly, it's him to admit his sin. So, Tamar was about to be killed when she says, but you're the one who impregnated me, Judah. So that sexual problem, if you will, in the Genesis stories, that was a teaching moment, and for Reuben, that's when Reuben achieves forgiveness. We don't really know when Reuben found forgiveness, but or did penance, but as the rabbis tell us, that's when he did. All right, that's the first tribe, Reuben.
The prince of the tribe of Shimon was named Shalumiel, my God is peace, to indicate that in spite of the sin of Zimri, head of this tribe, through whom 420,000 men among Israel died, God nevertheless made peace with this tribe.
Yeah, well, that's much later on in the book of Numbers. So that hadn't happened yet. It's not much later on, but it's it is later on when the at Baal Peor, which is 40 years later or 38 years later, when the men of Israel sinned with the Midianite women after, or again, on their way into the promised land. That was the tribe of Shimon, that one really bad dude, Zimri, from Shimon, but yet God forgave Shimon. Okay, so that's where hadn't happened yet. So it was part of the history when the rabbis wrote the Midrash, but it wasn't part of the history yet when they said that this is where the name comes from. It was kind of a foreshadowing, if you will, then in that case. But it has to do with what happens to them. So, and by the way, I'm not sure the Midrash said history. I doubt it did. I think that's Ginsburg's word. It probably said something about the tribe and the nature of the tribe. There's really no word for history in the Bible. The Bible doesn't have a word for history. Really, it's not a Hebrew word. It's not even a Hebrew concept, if you will. There is no history in the Bible. Everything happens simultaneously. All right, so we skip over the next son, which would be Levi, because the Levites are counted separately. They're not listed here. The next one is Judah.
The prince of the tribe of Judah bore the name Nachshon, wave of the sea, the son of Aminadav, prince of my people, because the prince received this dignity as a reward for having plunged into the waves of the Red Sea to glorify God's name.
Which is the Midrash. It's in the Midrash. It's not in the Torah that Nachshon does this, but we have this wonderful Midrash that Nachshon actually goes up and walks into the Red Sea. In order for the miracle to happen, there needed to be somebody who showed his faith, which is the Midrash of Nachshon, walking into the waves, going up to his, literally submerging his whole body in the water, and then the sea parts. Wonderful Midrash. It's not in the Torah. A lot of people know the Midrash. The rabbis loved that Midrash. They created that Midrash or taught that Midrash because they wanted there to be, some act of faith that had to be done. So that's where Nachshon got his name from, or gets his name. Why that guy is Nachshon, and that's the same Nachshon. I mean, that's not a different Nachshon. That's the guy who went into the sea. All right.
The tribe of Issachar had for its prince Netanel. God gave. For this tribe devoted its life to the Torah given by God to Moshe. Accordingly, Netanel was called the son of Zuar, burden, for Issachar assumed the burden of passing judgment in the lawsuits of the other tribes.
Yeah, and so this this is the tradition that the tribe of Issachar was a tribe of Torah scholars, which is a good thing. I mean, that was something good about Issachar. We don't know anything about Issachar really, but according to the Midrash, that's where the Torah scholars come from, was from the tribe of Issachar.
Corresponding to the occupation of the tribe of Zebulun, its prince was called Eliav, the ship, son of Helon, the sand. For this tribe spent its life on ships, seeking treasures hidden in the sand.
Okay, well, that's the tribe of Zebulun, which were the merchant traders of the waters, and so they derive something from the names, right? That are connected. They're connected. Probably not exactly where the names come from, but it's poetic and it's somewhat connected, or the words can be derived from it, let's say. But it's a stretch. But that's Zebulun, and everybody knows that they're the tribe of merchants, of sea merchants.
Elishama, son of Amihud, the name of the prince of the tribe of Ephraim, points to the history of Joseph, their forefather. God said, Elishama, he obeyed me, who bade him be chaste and not covet his master's wife, that wanted to tempt him to sin. And Amihud, me he honored, and none other.
Yeah, and so that's the story of Joseph and Potiphar, that Elishama, that he listened to me. Okay, so that's the secret code or whatever in the tribe of Ephraim, which was one of Joseph's sons. The other son is this guy.
The other tribe of Joseph, Manasseh, also named their prince in reference to their forefather, calling him Gamaliel, son of Pedatsur, which signifies God rewarded Joseph for his piety by releasing him from bondage and making him ruler over Egypt.
Yeah, so Gamaliel, which interestingly was a name during the rabbinic period. There are a few Rabbi Gamaliels, Rabban Gamaliel. There wasn't one, there was at least three. The tribe of the house of Hillel the Great. Gamaliel was one of those rabbis, and read about him at Passover. So Gamaliel did become a fairly common Hebrew name, at least during the rabbinic period. Wasn't as popular in later parts of Jewish history, but they derive from Joseph, other parts of Joseph's life that this one's a little bit like, this is just what happened to Joseph, but I guess when you talk, from where this name comes from Gamaliel, also this happens to him. Kind of that's, other parts of Joseph's life. And this, they're just literally, the Midrash is following the order of how Numbers lays out these names. And again, even though we're now kind of going out of order, we're definitely going through the tribes that were really important during the later biblical period, during the time that, there were kings, like the kings who came out of Ephraim, like King Jeroboam, and then also, of course, the king that came out of Benjamin, our next tribe, which is the first king, King Saul. Let's read about this guy.
The prince of the tribe of Benjamin was Avidan, my father decreed, son of Gideoni, mighty hosts, referring to the following incident. When Rachel perceived that she would die at the birth of her son, she called him son of faintness, supposing that a similar fate would overtake him, and that he was doomed through weakness to die young. But Jacob, the child's father, decreed otherwise and called him Binyamin, son of might and of many years.
Yeah, so the names Abidan and Gideoni are reflections of the fact that Benjamin's name essentially gets changed by his father, right? Because Benjamin originally was named Benoni, was the son of my suffering, and then Jacob changes it to son of my right hand, son of my strength. So Benjamin's name gets changed by his father. So that's the, if you will, that's the Abidan, that's the my father decreed, Avidan, the law of my father, is the fact that his name got changed. So again, the Midrash is all again a play on the names of these tribal heads many, many years later. As I said, the one example that was a foreshadow was the one from Shimon, which hadn't happened yet. I think there's another one. Yeah, this one right coming up right here. Hasn't happened yet, but the name is there. All right.
The prince of the tribe of Dan bore the name Ahiezer, brother of Help, son of Ammishaddai, my people's judge. Because he was allied with the helpful tribe of Judah at the erection of the tabernacle, and like this ruling tribe, brought forth a mighty judge in the person of Samson,
who lives many hundreds of years later after this. So this isn't about the history of Dan. We don't know much about the tribe of Dan we've talked about before, but we do know that Shimshon, Samson, is from that tribe. So we don't know a lot about Dan, but we know about Samson. So this was the rabbis trying to come up with something we can know about Dan, and we know, or Dan, to use the Hebrew word, Shimshon. So that is where we get the words brother of help, which Samson, obviously he's a hero, or kind of a hero, does heroic things. He is a helper as a judge, mighty judge, a person of strength. And he's Ami Shaddai, he's my people's Shaddai, if you will, which they translate here as judge, but it's really my people's Shaddai. And so, which again, I didn't translate because I'm not really sure how to translate Shaddai, other than it's a name for God. So these are things we will know about Dan. So we don't know a lot about Dan. And we really don't know a lot about these last tribes. I mean, we're going to finish up with this today, but yeah, we don't know a lot about these tribes of Dan, Asher, Gad, Naphtali. We don't know a lot about them. But, you know, the names maybe will teach us a little bit, or we can derive something from them, maybe. All right, here we go.
The tribe of Asher was distinguished by the beauty of its women, which was so excellent that even the old among them were fairer and stronger than the young girls of the other tribes. For this reason, kings chose the daughters of this tribe to be their wives, and these, through their intercessions before the kings, saved the lives of many who had been doomed to death. Hence, the name of the prince of the tribe of Asher, Pagiel, the interceder, son of Ochran, the afflicted, for the women of the tribe of Asher, through their intercession, obtained grace for the afflicted.
So I don't even know where to begin with that, because we don't know about this, but clearly there's a midrash that there were beautiful women in the tribe of Asher, and that kings would oftentimes turn to that tribe for their wives, which again hasn't happened yet. It's going to happen. So I guess there was a tradition that the Asher women were very beautiful. And of course, as wives of kings, one of the things that I guess wives of kings did was intercede on behalf of people who are going to be punished. And a pagiel, which means an interceder, you guess they get to intercede on behalf of people. They get to come to their husbands and say, don't kill this guy. So that's their job, I guess. So that's a long stretch to go to get to Pagiel. But again, maybe it's telling us that there was this tradition that the women of Asher were very beautiful. Even the older ones were prettier than the younger ones from the other tribes. I don't know. That's what we just read. It's what we read. The Midrash tells us that's what happened. All right. The next is the tribe of Gad.
The prince of the tribe of Gad, or Gad, bore the name Eliasaph, God multiplied, son of Deuel, God is a witness. to reward them for passing over the Jordan and not returning to their property on this side of the river until the promised land was won, their wealth was multiplied by God. For when upon returning, they found the enemy at home, God aided them, and they gained all of their enemies' possessions. God was furthermore witness that this tribe had no wicked motive when they erected an altar on their land.
Uh-huh. Well, so Eliasaph means God multiplies. And so God multiplied their property to some extent because they did, according to the tradition, they wanted to live on the other side of the Jordan River. We read this at the end of the book of Numbers. The pact is that they have to at least go in and fight with the rest of the Israelites, and then they can come back and live in these areas, right? On the other side of the Jordan, not original promised land. Well, what's interesting, of course, is the Midrash just told us that they came back and did indeed find enemies in their land, had come and settled in their land, and they had to kill those guys again. So what was the good side of that is they wound up with even more, which is kind of weird because that's exactly what they were worried about, was that they would leave the land and then the enemies would come and take advantage of their wives and kids and people left behind. Well, it did happen, but it ended up being okay anyways. So we don't know anything about God other than that. I mean, we really don't know anything about the Gadites. They're just a mystery. And of course, they're really one of the first tribes to disappear, because when Israel was overrun by the Assyrians, they were the first to go because they were not even in Israel proper. So we don't know what happens to them. We don't know much about them. And the last tribe?
The prince of the tribe of Naphtali was called Ahira, desirable meadow, son of Enan, clouds. For the land of this tribe was distinguished by its extraordinary excellence. Its products were exactly what their owners desired, and all this owing to the plenty of rain, for the clouds poured plentiful rain over their land.
Yeah, that's we don't really know. We don't really know. It must have had good land, and clouds that's what the name Anan means, is clouds. Which, by the way, aren't necessarily bad, right? Because they have rain in them, and that's life. And so Anan is actually not a common Hebrew name in Israel today, but it's not uncommon, right? It's become like a Hebrew name again. Some of these other names have become, like Eliasaph has become a name too, or just Asaph has become a pretty say super common Hebrew name, but it's not, again, you see it now. These are names that you never saw, like people in Russia, Poland, whatever, were not named Asaph. Now in Israel they are, and Anan as well. Especially like things like natural wonders, mountains, the name Tal, which means, dew, very common Hebrew name now, Tal. Gal, which means like wave or current, like Gal Gadot. Those are names that are really popular now. So there are Hebrew names that our ancestors didn't have. So we'll finish up with this last kind of reflections about the tribes and what they're going to do and who they are. So this is now, we read about the leaders of each of these tribes kind of like one by one. And now we read about kind of like a little midrash about all of them. And this is what we'll finish with today.
At the census of the people, the tribes were set down in the order in which they put up their camp and moved in their marches. The tribes of Judah, Issachar, and Zebulun formed the first group, the royal tribe of Judah being associated with the tribe of learned men, Issachar, and with Zebulun, which, through its generosity, enabled Issachar to devote itself to the study of Torah. The second group consisted of Reuven, Shimon, and Gad. The sinful tribe of Shimon was supported on the right by the penance of Reuven and on the left by the strength of God. The tribes of Ephraim, Manasseh, and Benjamin formed a group by themselves, for these, before all the other tribes, were destined to appear gloriously against Amalek. The Ephraimite, Joshua, was the first who was victorious against Amalek. The Benjamite, Saul followed his example in his war against Agag, king of Amalek, and under the leadership of men of the tribe of Manasseh, the tribe of Shimon, at the time of King Jehoshaphat, succeeded in destroying the rest of the Amalekites, and to take possession formed the last group. And for the following reason were united in this way. The tribe of Dan had already, at the time of the exodus from Egypt, been possessed of the sinful thought to fashion an idol. To counteract this dark thought, Asher was made its comrade, from whose soil came the oil for lighting, and that Dan might practice in the blessing. Naphtali, full with the blessing of the Lord, became its second companion.
So this is the division of the tribes as they're around the Mishkan, right? There's 4 directions, and each group of 3 is around the Mishkan. So what happens is that, according to this Midrash, they help each other. There's a strength or weakness that somebody has. It's counteracted by the other tribe that's part of their trio. So again, there's 4 sections, north, south, east, west, and each one has 3 tribes. Again, Levites in the middle that are also, we'll read next week, the Midrash, they're also divided or separated by clan, by group. The 3 groups of the Levites, the 3 sons of Levi. But the tribes here are also arranged around each other. And well, let's read this one last section, and we'll just kind of explain it.
At this third census, the number of men who were able to go to war proved to be exactly the same as the second census taken in the same year. Not one among Israel had died during this period, from the beginning of the erection of the tabernacle to its dedication, when the third census took place. But no conclusive evidence concerning the sum total of the separate tribes can be drawn from this number of men able to go to war, because the ratio of the 2 sexes varied among the different tribes, as, for example, the female sex in the tribe of Naphtali greatly outnumbered the male.
Yeah, so that's what we're going to finish with. We have a list of how, after we get the tribal leaders, we actually get a census. And so first of all, they're saying there were the same amount of people at the beginning of the construction, the list that we get in Leviticus, the same amount of people that we have after the construction. So over the months that they built the Mishkan, nobody died. Well, Nadav and Avihu died, but people didn't die during this period, which is not possible normally. So a miracle happened in that people didn't die while the Mishkan was being done. Numbers again begins with this numbering. And so this is their explanation for it. But they're also going to draw from this weird thing that some of the tribes seem really small. And so the reason is that there were differences in the amount of people in the tribes, because sometimes one tribe had a lot more women than they had men. So you can't just derive from the amount of men that were able to go to war that are in that 20 to 60 range how many people there were, because some tribes had more women. So the tribes were more evenly balanced than it appears, because it really does appear when we get this list that some of the tribes are like twice as big as some of the other tribes. Like the Naphtalites are not big. And so they said, well, there's a lot more women in the tribe, so don't worry. They weren't completely out of sorts. And it didn't look that bad, because there was just a lot of women in that tribe. So you shouldn't feel like the tribes were totally out of sorts. There was a balance to them, if you will. And again, because this is saying when they went off into war or went off into battle, or that this is the way they marched, and that these are men who are able to go into war, they literally say, well, it's also connected to the wars against the Amalekites. And the wars against the Amalekites, some of them that go on hundreds of years later, are also kind of combined into this, because the real war that the Israelites always have is with Amalek. They are our nemesis. They are the people that we're always on guard for. The Amalekites are our eternal enemy. And so the Amalekites, some of them survive in every generation and are there in every generation to do battle against us. So again, according to some of the rabbis, the Nazis were the Amalekites. They were literally Amalek. And so this is the mystical end of our war, that there are people that are kind of our spiritual adversaries, if you will. And who are they? Oftentimes they're self-identified. They are people who are Amalekites because of their behavior. And can never be mad at Ryder, even though he was making noises. So folks, I want to thank everybody for being back and for coming back.
Ryder.
Judith, I want to thank Judith for reading today and for taking us through this first part of Numbers. We do read about the Levites who are going to be. Ryder was happy to see me. He was happy to see me when he saw me yesterday. He's still happy to see me. Yeah, Ryder. Ryder. So we're I hope to see you all, if you can make it out tonight, to have tacos outside. We're going to be outside at Neely's Skillet tonight. We're going to bring, Shira said we should bring Ryder. Oh, maybe Ryder, you can come with us. I don't know, actually. But yeah, join us at Neely's Skillet for dinner outside so we can have a chance to socialize a little bit. And then tomorrow night we'll have a Torah study, be catching up on the book of Deuteronomy. We're got to read some chapters of Deuteronomy. We did do a class of we did do a Torah study, not last week, but the week before. I did one at 2:00 in the morning from England, and that was fun. No, it was fine actually. It was I was so out of sorts on time, it really didn't matter. So everybody, it's great to see you back, and thank you everybody too who joined us. Some people joined us on Facebook as well, and we hope to see everybody. Please stay healthy and do what you need to do in order to stay healthy. I know everybody here takes it seriously and is doing what they need to do, but we also do want to see everybody in person. So that's why we'll be having dinner tonight at Neely's Skillet. So everybody take care, and it's great to see you all. Thank you for being here. All right, bye.